In the Roaring Twenties, we ended on the idea of sports, where we talked about Jack Johnson, the boxer. Now we get to talk about other people that were also really influential in the idea of sports. First up, we have football. Football was big during that time, as we talked about before, especially in college. In the pros, some people like Red Grange, that we talked about before, was doing some big things. However, on the other side, there's Frederick Fitz Pollard. Frederick Fitz Pollard was in football from the 1920s to 1926. In 1919, Fitz Pollard became one of the first African Americans to play in the NFL. In 1920, he led his Akron Pros, his professional team, to the very first NFL championship. In 1921, Pollard became the first player coach with the same team and in fact became the first black head coach in the NFL. This is how good Fitz Pollard was. He would play in the team but also be the coach. Next up, we have basketball. One of the most famous teams that we know from Harlem is the Harlem Globetrotters. However, the Harlem Globetrotters is actually not from Harlem. The Harlem Globetrotters was started in 1926, this time period, in Chicago. They started off as their name Harlem Globetrotters because of the fact that they felt like Harlem was the home of culture and blackness. So they named themselves the Harlem Globetrotters, even though they started off in Chicago. They got their motivation to name themselves in Harlem as well from the other professional basketball team, the Harlem Rens. The Harlem Rens was the very first black-owned, fully black professional basketball team in history, founded in Harlem in October of 1923. They were named after the Renaissance Casino. In 1939, about 20 years after they were created, the Rens won the inaugural World Championship of Professional Basketball, an invitation-only tournament with 12 pro teams. The Rens defeated the Oshkosh All-Stars in the title game. Oshkosh was the champion of the National Basketball League, a whites-only league. So even back then, we were giving sauce to all the white people. As you can see, the Harlem Rens were a professional team. The Globetrotters also started off as a professional team too, but then they also got into some of the comedy as we know today, where they're dribbling the balls off people's heads and doing all the fancy dunking and things like that. Next up, we have baseball. Baseball, as we talked about before in the previous PowerPoint, was really important for America. Although they did not want to integrate baseball, what ended up happening was this thing called the Negro Leagues. These are some of the most famous teams that they had inside the Negro Leagues. If you take a look, you'll see the Newark Eagles down there from here in New Jersey. Some also famous teams were the Black Yankees, New York Black Yankees, Kansas City Monarchs, Baltimore Black Sox, and the Atlanta Black Crackers, and also the New York Cubans. All these teams played against one another, and they went to different places in order to play, and they would have large crowds come. Some of the most famous stars of the Negro Leagues were people like Josh Gibson and Satchel Paige. There was also a man from Plainfield named Joe Black. Joe Black was also a picture. We're going to talk about more about him when we get to Black History Month next month. The Negro Leagues were started by this man here, Andrew Rube Foster. He thought about creating a league because he wanted to highlight numerous black players, and he'll give them the same opportunity that white players were getting inside of the regular leagues. These black players were actually way better than a lot of the white players. People like Satchel Paige and Josh Gibson, Jackie Robinson, all these people are doing phenomenal things inside of the Negro Leagues. People would come out to watch these Negro League games more often than a lot of the other regular white games because there was more entertainment. There was better pitching, better hitting. There's actually a movie about the Negro Leagues, and I'm going to show you a clip here from Josh Gibson facing Satchel Paige.
You better go and get him out of there before I come up there and kick your narrow ass in the next week.
Oh, boy. Well, Gibson just issued a personal challenge to the legendary hurler.
Ain't nobody scared of Satchel Paige. Hey, anybody seen Satchel Paige? I reckon he ain't coming round here today.
I'm gonna walk this fella.
What are you talking about?
I'm gonna walk him so I can get to Josh.
And that's way outside, and Page has just walked the bases loaded to get to Josh Gibson. Oh, my. Oh, boy. Grab the children, Cornelia. A big storm is brewing here today. The bases are loaded. Satchel Paige on the mound. Gibson at the plate. Campanella catching.
Both look beautiful in the
This is my last inning, big man. When you stick around, you get your taters off these other fools.
Satchel Paige looking in for the sign, stepping up to the rubber. Josh Gibson digging in at the plate. Bases loaded. Here's the windup. And the pitch. Swing and a miss. Strike one. Satchel Paige throwing some high heat today.
Strike him out.
Satchel Paige looking in for the signal. The windup. The pitch, and he swings, and there's a long fly ball to deep right field. It could be. It is. Foul ball. Oh, no.
Yeah, keep your eyes on me. Don't you ever take your eyes off of me.
So you're gonna be a key at your knees, boy.
He looks. Here's the pitch. Strike three.
Josh Gibson and Satchel Paige actually have a lot of good battles. There was another one where Josh Gibson points to where he was going to hit the ball, and then all of a sudden he, one-handed, knocks the ball out of the park off of Satchel Paige. They were like the biggest thing back then. Andrew Root Foster actually once said that the worst thing for baseball was the integration of the Negro Leagues, the major leagues with the Negro Leagues, because a lot of the black players did not get an opportunity to shine and grow because of the fact that they all try to get into the major leagues. As you're going to see later, a lot of people think that if you take what people already have and mix it together and integrate and make sure everybody is participating all in the same opportunity, there's less opportunity for people to kind of come in and do stuff. Whereas if people have their separate areas and their separate stores and their separate stuff, there's more opportunity for people to shine. So this is what Andrew Root Foster thought about, and this is why he created the Negro Leagues.